Welcome to Club Talk Hurling. Myself and Fintan O'Toole here, brought to you by Slattery Sullivan Insurances in Nina. For any new quotes, call them up there, the numbers on the screen, and give them the reference our game for 10% off all new business quotes. Fintan, how are you doing? We're just going to go straight to your own native championship, the Cork Hurling Championship this weekend. Interesting sort of storyline in Midleton versus Sarsfields. Now, this is the 2013 champions against the 2012 and 14 champions, but a fairly high profile manager for Midleton.
Yeah, so a new coach for them this year in Ben O'Connor, who obviously people will be familiar with everything he did during his playing career. But, you know, he's been putting together a pretty decent coaching CV with the work he was doing with Charleville. They got to the All-Ireland Intermediate final last year, 2019. They would have won the county the year before. Like Darragh Fitzgibbon would be kind of their best known player. But, you know, in general, they've kind of a lot of kind of good young players, and he had them playing to a good style, and, you know, seem to be doing really well with them, you know. Yeah, and he's involved in Midleton this year, and I suppose like every championship, it's been delayed in Cork this year, but the change in the late July format or starting date isn't probably the only thing. Like, this year is the first year that Cork are going to group stages, and that the championship's been kind of streamlined, that it's, you know, different groups of 12, so 12 in the Premier Senior grade, and then you 12 in what's called the Senior A grade. So this is unusual in that it's a group game between Midleton and Sarsfields, and it's a good group in the sense that under the old system, it was going to be, as it was originally agreed last year, there was going to be 3 teams who were going to be coming out to the group for the knockout stages. But because of everything, as we know, with COVID, I suppose the time is being compressed. There's only 2 teams who are going to be coming out of the group. So I think that will probably add a little bit more than originally would have been to some of these group matches. And this one, you know, has a lot of potential. These Cork rivals, 2 pretty big clubs in terms of, like you mentioned, the fact that they've won counties kind of at the start of the decade. But, you know, Midleton would have been in a final in 2018. Stars have been kind of knocking around semi-finals. And there's still a lot of very familiar names on both sides. Obviously, you mentioned Connie Han, say, you know, Daniel Carney has been involved with Cork recently enough. He's on the Sarsfield side, so I think it's a good game to start the championship in Cork this weekend.
And are either of them in the hunt for a county title this year?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's only 2 years since Midleton got to a final, and like, the team that won in 2013 has undergone a bit of change. They didn't manage to kick on and maybe get a second title after that. But like, you still have Han, someone like Luke O'Farrell now, you know, you see this often, don't you? A guy who maybe was involved with a county, and then when he's not, he kind of becomes like a really, really important player for the club. Like, and he'd still be a very, very effective guy at club level. And then they've had a lot of underage success over the last couple of years, minor 21, different guys in Cork teams. So Sean O'Leary Hayes would be a name be familiar to people. I think, you know, he had a few runs with the Cork seniors in defence, and Tommy O'Connell would be another one. Yeah. So, you know, there's a couple of players coming up for them there. And Sarsfield similarly, I mean, these actually met, I think it was the weekend before Christmas last year, in the County Under 21 final in Cork, the top level, and Sarsfield's won it. So that's an indication that there's talent coming on both sides. And then you still have the older guys like O'Farrell and Carney kind of still there on the respective sides to be kind of flying the flag.
I'm going to come to Glen Rovers against Finbars in a minute, but I'm just going to quickly run through a few of the other fixtures, and if you have any thoughts, we'll come back to them then. So you've Blackrock against Erin's own, Ballyhale are going to be meeting Douglas in Mallow, Bishopstown against Newtown Chandram, and Napiershig against Carricktool. So the one that stands out to me straight away is Douglas. When are they actually going to make the breakthrough? Because there's serious quality. Shane Kingston, I mean, Cadigans, there's so many good players there.
Yeah, they're actually in the group with Midleton Sarsfields, so that's going to make it really interesting, the fact that now it's only going to be 2 teams coming out of it. So, like, it looks like, you know, this is like Ballyhale will be perceived as the kind of weaker side in that group, you know, the other 2 will be regarded as stronger. So, I mean, it looks like it's going to be very, very competitive there to try and get out of it. Like you mentioned, all those players, all those county talents. Brian Turnbull's another one. Their coach this year actually is Shane Brick, you know, would have been the kind of very well known Kerry player for about a decade.
Much so celebrated by Buff Egan.
Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see kind of how they kind of get on. Like, you know, I think this is a must-win for them to get off to a good start, because they are in a very, very difficult group. But definitely on paper, especially that forward line, you know, there's so much talent there, and I don't think too many of them have been playing football this year.
Okay.
So Douglas played football last weekend, so I guess unlike a lot of clubs where guys are kind of juggling both could be wrong, but just looking at the team sheet when they played football last week, Kingston, Cadigans weren't involved. So I think that may be an indicator that maybe their focus is solely hurling. Just one other line that I actually just saw this week was the Blackrock were playing Aaron's Own on Saturday night, and I know this has come up a lot in different counties, but so someone saying that basically Blackrock had 6 players that were meant to be going to America this year,
right.
J1s or hurling for the summer, and like they would be regarded again. They've had a lot of underage success in recent years, but I'm sure this is something that's been replicated all around the county, all around the country, and I think it'll be interesting when county championships are over. You'll be able to look at what teams benefited from COVID, if you know what I mean, that they had players available to them through injury or the America thing. I think that's going to be a massive one.
Yeah.
You know, having uninterrupted access to all your young players, that they're all around for the summer, and that you know your dates in a year where, you know, that just format and that process just hasn't been available and there for clubs over the last few years.
And Immakilly, of course, won it 3 in a row, much to the frustration of the likes of Glen Rovers, who I think they were even involved in a motion to disband the divisional team.
They were, yeah.
Which, you know, I don't necessarily blame them either. It is frustrating. You know, the days of UCC and UCD winning county titles as well, I think that's a bit of a frustration for the actual clubs around. But Glen Rovers against Finbars, 52 county titles between them. But it probably feels like Finbars are a way off Glen Rovers at the moment.
Yeah, no, in fairness, they did get to a semi-final. I think it was last year. There have been kind of signs, you know, of them kind of improving. You know, Ronan Kern will be involved in them for a good couple of years. He did some good work with them. You know, the schedule, I think, is probably going to be a factor for them. That I think half of their team play football for St. Finbars, and then you also the 2 Cahalans play football for Castlehaven. So a lot of them have had big games last weekend. They have to kind of turn around now and kind of play, and it's obviously not going to be an easy task, but the big thing here, I suppose, that a lot of people have been kind of looking at is that it just stands out as a game that so few people can go to because of the size of the stadium that it's going to be played in. At least it's live TV coverage. In fairness, I think it's one of 4 games this weekend between the 2 stations, but it's the first RTE match on. So, you know, there's a lot of tradition to it. There's a lot of kind of historical memories. Like, it's 40 years since they met in a county final that I think there was 30,000 at.
Yeah, you know, and I think there was 8,000 locked outside. And they had to eventually open up the gates. So yeah, it seems unthinkable now, you know. Yeah. But hopefully it'll be kind of a good start and a good fixture. But on the basis that the Glen, you know, haven't got to the final last year, you'd definitely be making them favourites in this one. Yeah, like just having the class of someone like Patrick Horgan, and I mean it's said all the time, but having a free taker who you know is going to knock over 9 out of 10, it's hard to beat that. The Donegal Championship, just a quick rundown of the fixtures: St. Eunan's against Tanta and Sean McCool against Buncrana. Moving on to the Kilkenny Championship, and I'll just run through a couple of the fixtures and we'll come back to one or two. Bennett's Bridge against O'Loughlin Gales, that should be actually a cracker of a fixture. Both teams getting to the deep ends of the championship in the last few years. Ballyhale against Tullaroan, James Stephens against Danesford, Eddie Brennan's Craig Ballycallan against Clara, Erin's Own against Mulnavat, Roar and Steve against Dixborough. And I played against Dixborough not so long ago in a challenge match. They're a decent team without doubt. A lot of players very comfortable at moving the ball. But Ballyhale Shamrocks against Tullaroan, so it's the clash of the All-Ireland champions, the seniors against the intermediate teams. Interesting to see what happens with, you know, 2 in a row All-Ireland champions Ballyhale this year, because there's no Henry Shefflin, he stepped away as manager. Adrian Mullen did his cruciate earlier in the year, so one would assume he's not back just yet. And no Michael Fennelly, who's retired from Club Hurling and is now the Offaly manager. So, I mean, it's going to be tough for them to hit the ground running when you've all those changes, but they still have TJ Reid, Colin Fennelly, Joey Holden among others. Do you expect Ballyhale to just kind of find new men to go into those positions and kick on again?
Yeah, I would think so. I think that one of the big benefits there for them here is the way that it's a very different type of year. So not only do you have a later date in July, but the All-Ireland final is in January. I mean, you've seen over the last couple of years, like, you know, there's been time where teams have won the All-Ireland in March and they have to turn around a month later. And Championship, I mean, Kerfin are in the same situation on Sunday in Galway football. I don't think it's happened before, is that a team has won the All-Ireland club title and it's taken 6 months for them to play, and it must be. And as much as I think TJ Reid was saying last week, you know, we were happy to keep hurling and all that, like you know, I would think it has to have done wonders for their mental freshness. Just a chance to reset. Like more than any 2 clubs in the country, to me, Ballyhale and Kerfin would stand out as the 2 that have benefited from this complete shutdown.
Yeah, well, this idea that you want to go straight out and start a new season, or you're happy to go again after winning All Ireland in March and then start a new season in April. I mean, just from my own experience back in 2018, we won the county title, and whatever way it had fallen into replay, we were back out in the county championship 2 weeks later. And this might feed into the idea of binge drinking with GA players, but including the day of the All-Ireland, I drank 8 of the next 9 days, and then 6 days after that you're back out in county title or county championship again, and we barely scraped over the line in a game we were supposed to win a point a man. So I definitely think it's tough, and it's really good for the likes of Ballyhale and Carfin, like you've said.
Yeah, like I think Carfin and Ferdinand talk about that. They kind of give, Kevin O'Brien said they give their players a chance to relax during the summer, and a good few go to America. And maybe in Ballyhale the Kilkenny Championship starts a bit later because obviously Kilkenny had the commitments, but I think it's helped them to get the break because, as you said, that's a lot of change. I mean, manager, fairness, like I think they've got in a guy with a really, really good record. You know, different clubs. Obviously, he was with Father O'Neill's against Tullaroan. That's really interesting. Like, you definitely, if you told them that night of that All-Ireland final in January when Father O'Neill's playing Tullaroan, that when Tullaroan played the first round of the Kilkenny Senior Championship, you'll be opposing him. But like, I go back to the job he did with Carrigtwohill in Cork in 2011. Like, that was absolutely incredible. I mean, I know if you talk to, our colleague Dennis Walsh from the Sunday Times, who'd be involved with that club, like, we're absolutely rave about him and how he absolutely transformed their fortunes, being involved with Watford club. So
yeah, James O'Connor's definitely, like, his CV is growing nicely. That was the first county title in 93 years for Carrigtwohill, and to do what he did with Father O'Neill's, bringing him up senior and getting to an intermediate All-Ireland final is quite something.
Yeah, really impressive, and he's been involved with Watford in club hurling as well. So look, like, how do you try and replace Henry? Given the never lost a championship game and in 2 seasons, but obviously he had a couple of those losses. Like, I suppose I think they always knew they were coming to the end with Michael Fennelly, that it's just going to be too much from his commitments with Offaly and obviously the injury situation. So Mullen is the big blow, isn't it? Because that's the next generation. Like, that's the next TJ in terms of your attacking leader. To be without him, I mean, I presume he's done for the year. Is it like, you've seen a lot of guys have been able to come back because of the shutdown? I mean, I'm not sure, is that potentially a runner for him? I've been
I follow him on Instagram, and you'd see him working away in the gym and that sort of stuff, but there's no indication that he's ready to hit the field just yet. But I mean, it can be hard to tell. I do wonder who'll go number 6 for them. Would it be Evan Shefflin, who's very good at sneaking up from wing back and knocking over scores, but centre back is quite different? Would it be maybe Paddy Mullen, who, if I remember correctly, was kind of the spare man at the back against Bursley in the All-Ireland final? He's a good player, so there's plenty of questions for James O'Connor to answer, but I mean, he has the pedigree to suggest that he can do it. I wonder for Tullaroan though. There is always the outside possibility that they could get beaten badly here. It's a game on TG Cahir. Tommy Walsh, he's not going to be on the front foot as much in games at this level as he was in intermediate. Like, what chance of Tullaroan doing what Clara did in 2012 and 13 and winning the county intermediate, All-Ireland intermediate, and then going on and actually winning the senior county title the following year? It's probably unlikely.
Yeah, I think age profile, they're not too bad, are they? I mean, like, obviously, like, I know Tommy, but I mean, they've, like, all the other Walshes, like Porrick's went to his prime, Shane looks like he's going to push on. The other Tommy Walsh in defence.
Matthew Keown.
Yeah, like, they look like a club that, sometimes clubs go up to senior level and maybe it's arrived too late for them. It's a group of kind of older players, but they look like they still have kind of younger guys, and I'd say they're absolutely must be buzzing for this match, because like you hear Tommy Walsh, he's talked so much about how much he wanted to win this, how much he wanted to get back up senior. Now they're here, up at a way to start it, playing the All-Ireland champions. Like you mentioned, the live and TG Cahir factor. Yeah, I'd say they'd be loving it, the chance to kind of pit themselves against the very best, not only in Kilkenny but in the country at the moment.
I wonder about James Stevens, who were against Danesford. Can they kick on from last year? Like, they got to the county final, lost by 9 points to Ballyhale, never really looked like they were going to threaten to win it, relying a bit on Matt Root to win the long puckouts that were going out, and otherwise they struggled throughout the game. Jackie Tyrrell, instead of being full back here, is now full forward for the intermediates, so as far as I know, he's not going to be involved. Like, they do have some county grade talent in Niall Brazel, Luke Scanlon, Conor Brown, who of course is on the Kilkenny team and actually moved to cornerback during the league this year from midfield a year ago, whereas Danesford, Richie Horgan of course will lead the line, and Paul Murphy in defence. Now he's not too long back from an army tour as far as I know, but James Stevens would be expecting to win this one, but I don't know, unless Ballyhale come back down, I don't know if James Stevens can kick on to win it this year, and even will Owen Larkin remain at 6 like he did last year?
Yeah, I suppose it's interesting that they're kind of similar teams in the sense that you have the well-known stars like Larkin and Tyrrell over the last couple of years. TJ and Fenley on the other side, and then I suppose it's the challenge for the younger players to come up. Fairness, Ballyhale's players have done that.
Yeah.
The likes of the Mullins, Evan Sheffield, and all that. And I mean, like James Stevens, this guy's trying to do that. At a really illustrious club, not only historically, but even like Tyrrell and Larkin were on county and all Ireland club and insides as well. So they've kind of grown up with that, and they've kind of seen that expectations. But they would still be probably one of the best chances you'd think if someone's going to try and catch Ballyhale. And yeah, like who knows this year, like the way it is, like momentum, all that kind of stuff. They get on a roll now. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot of clubs kind of thinking that maybe this could be the year that they might have a better shot at catching Ballyhale.
Yeah, interesting to see how Eddie Brennan goes this year, assuming he's still playing. Billy Ryan, very pacey player. I think he could be the future for Kilkenny. They're up against Clara, Craig Ballycallan there. And Dixborough, just haven't played them in a challenge match not so long ago. Bill Sheehan scored a goal off me, to be fair to him. Now, in fairness, someone come soloing up the middle and I was caught. I had to go to him and he just tapped it in the net. And
so it was an overlap.
It was an overlap, so everyone else let me down. It wasn't my fault. But Keys shut down Ollie Walsh in midfield, because if he gets his hand on the ball throughout the game, he's gonna get scores, or he's got a very good delivery. So that'll be a big thing for the Roar, and I'm pretty sure they're well aware of that too. Just moving on to the Carlo Championship. So St Mullins, who got off to a winning start against Naomh Eoin last week, they're up against Ballinkillen. Mount Leinster Rangers are against Naomh Eoin, who I've just mentioned. Laois Championship. So the first Laois club game to be streamed online is going to be Burrs Kilcotton against Cam Ross. So Cam Ross were looking for a 3 in a row last year until the semi-final, where they met Ross King and he got his wonder goal for Rathdowney Earl. Then you also have Abbey Leaks against Castletown and Rathdowney Earl against Clough-Ballycollah. So it's the reigning champions against the 2015 champions. Always good county championship, to be fair, in Laois.
Yeah, and good that the streaming means like that. That was a clip, wasn't it, kind of viral last year. That King goal was a brilliant one. Like, at least this year, you'd be thinking there's a better chance of kind of seeing these kind of scores with most clubs kind of doing coverage, most kind of counties doing coverage. I think they seemed to receive pretty well last weekend, just looking at kind of stuff. Although I think it's something Clare there's some criticism of the kind of quality. So I think that's the kind of issue, But yeah, look, I mean, that's what competitive is the operative word when it comes to Laois over the last few years with the kind of stuff. But definitely there's kind of 3 or 4 sides there that you imagine are going to be fancying their chances of a title in the next 6 weeks or so.
No sign of Michael Verney this week. I wonder, has it anything to do with the fact that his Burr against Kilcormac Callaghy in the Offaly Hurling Championship?
I don't know, would events in Ballybrit be his major focus now rather than Kilcormac Callaghy for this week? I'm not sure how much he's thinking about Kilcormac at the moment.
Yeah, he's getting bet into the Galway races there at the moment. But it is the 2019 finalist Spur, who I think Verney will admit himself they were in a great position and did fade away badly in the last 15 minutes against St Ryan's, against a team that has won it 4 times since 2012. And to be fair to Kilcormac, never has a team been so badly done by in an All-Ireland final than when they played St Thomas's in 2013, because not only one, but I think both of their red cards were highly debatable that day. And as you'd see with maybe even the likes of Ballymun, you get there once, you have a right chance to win it, and you kind of need to make it count. So that was. And
the thing is, you would have said Kilcormac always struck you as a side that this was the chance, Like I always remember, especially before they played Tony Kelly saying about Ballyhale in 2017. He was asked about, this is a big occasion. He goes, oh yeah, this will never happen to us again. And I think one of the journalists said, you've county players. He goes, no, this is a complete one-off now, if you understand us. Like Kilcormac had a bit of a feel of that. I mean, they had a brilliant semi-final that win year against Thurles Sarsfields, didn't they? And they've discovered since how kind of hard it is even to just get out of Leinster and kind of make progress. Kind of establish themselves and kind of win a few counties is fair going. And the team they're playing will kind of attest to the fact that they're not easily won. I mean, we won't try and heap on the agony for Verney or anything like that. But that is a difficult thing for clubs that have such a tradition and culture of winning, that if it just starts to slip a little bit, trying to get back there, I presume it becomes a kind of bit of a weight that kind of hangs over you as regards the team. in terms of trying to get over the line and get back to those heights again.
Coolderry are also against Sherkir, Shinrone against Ballynamere, and Rhinos will be looking to get off to a winning start against Belmont. So the Limerick Championship is an interesting one this weekend because it's the last chance saloon for teams that lost in round one. So that would be Napirsig, Adair, South Liberties and Blackrock. So just to run through the fixtures, first of all, Adair against Doon. So Declan Hannon, you'd imagine, will be getting on plenty of ball in this match. Doon will be without Richie English, but they'll still have the likes of Darragh O'Donovan and Barry Murphy. So they have a very good team, managed by Galway native Tony Ward. So he's obviously plenty of success with the Camogie team over the years, I should say. Ahan against Napirsig. So I presume the two Morrisseys, Dan and Tom, will have an awful lot of work to do here. But like, I don't know if you actually got a chance to watch it. Napirsig really faded badly against Kilmallock, allowed Graham Mulcahy to run the show. Now it's not easy to stop him at all. But Napirsig seem a little bit off what they were a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I suppose they're on the road a long time, I mean, 5 Munster campaigns, they won 4 of them. Just trying to keep going back to those heights, I think, is quite difficult, and a lot of those guys have long campaigns with Limerick as well. I suppose what this has kind of shown for me is that the pressure now on Adair and Napirsig, because we're in a compressed season, because it's a group stage format, like suddenly, the importance of winning that first game, like, and the thing I noticed right about Kilmallock's kind of celebrations, and I mean, I'm sure it was, a lot of that was down to the fact they'd finally beaten Napirsig and they've suffered a lot against them over the last couple of years, but as well, just how that positive start can really kind of set you up. And the flip side now is that Napirsig and Adair going into these games, Doon were in the final, was it 2 years ago, I think, and Ahan, I don't think they've been in a final too recently, but like both sides, they're still, in the kind of topper ranks of Limerick hurling. They still have kind of well-known county players, so all of a sudden it's a pretty tricky match for both this weekend, and you could have a big side suddenly kind of out of the race very early on in Limerick.
The only thing is Napirsig do have the quality. Like, if they hit the ground running, look at the attacking talent they have. Adrian Breen, Will Henn has been getting plenty of scores, David Dempsey, Conor Boylan, he's on the senior county panel as well, so there's no shortage of talent, not to mention Will Donoghue, Mike Casey, Peter Casey. How did I not think of him firstly? It's
an all-star attack, like, there's kind of no doubt about that, like, but yeah, it definitely did look like there was a kind of a personal cause at Kilmallock last year, and I think Mulcahy kind of alluded to it afterwards, like he rattled off fairly easily the number of games that they'd lost to them, like, so you imagine that had been kind of hanging over them for the last couple of years, and they've been kind of talking about it. They have Tony Considine back in charge of them now.
Yeah.
This year, having enjoyed some success. He was the guy that kind of led them first, didn't he, when they was 2010, 2012 around that time,
Yeah. Murrow Broher against South Liberties and Blackrock against Gary Spillane. So jump on to the Wexford Championship then. Plenty of fixtures here. Clockbawn against Oulart de Bala, and I think Oulart will want to bounce back from that defeat against St. Martin's because they're looking a fair bit off what they were during the middle of the last decade when they were fairly dominating and obviously won that Leinster title in 2015. So, and it's actually hard to see them challenging for a county title this year at the I'm just not quite sure that they could win a county title this year.
Well, from what I understand, it's just a complete new generation, really. Even from that team that you would have played in a Leinster final, like all the older stagers, like David Redmond, Roster, Jacobs. I think they're pretty much all gone now at this stage. Just looking at that Martin's game, and it's a whole new, it's the stories and the duns, but it's the next generation of kind of coming through. And you obviously have someone like Sean Murphy as well. So it kind of looks to me like it's just going to take a few years by the looks of it. And Martins are kind of looks like the benchmark at the moment, like with the kind of O'Connors and Kieran Ling and then that they have at their disposal. But yeah, I suppose like Faith Harriers, I think you've kind of seen them recently. You've been kind of pretty impressed with them, and obviously like Navane as well, champions 2 years ago. So maybe there are a few other contenders there in the mix. Yeah,
Faith Harriers, we played them in a challenge match last week, and God, I was very impressed with them. Like, Lee Chin is obviously the focal point of the team, but there are some really, really exciting young lads. I think they had something like maybe 4 guys who were involved with the Wexford minors either last year or this year. Richie Lawler looks like a really good young player, and I was actually one of the young lads who's on the Coola panel. I told him you're to text me the name of some of those young lads because I couldn't remember them all, and of course that has obviously slipped between the cracks. But really exciting young lads who can all take a score. Brilliant first touch on an awful lot of these players, but it's how they use Chin that I found fascinating. It was almost like an ultra version of what they're doing with Wexford. Maybe it's similar enough actually, but Derek McGrath is over them, so as you can imagine, they're fairly tactically astute. But there was the first part of the game, Lee Chin was on his own 45 for a lot of it, and looking to pick up ball back there. You know, the likes of Tony Kelly will do this, Colin Galvin at different times, but he's back there picking up ball, and if he sees Fate Harriers win the ball a little bit further out the field, he's on the shoulder then, and he's on the front foot, and he's looking to pin it into one of these exciting forwards in the corner. Then once the opposition has been drawn out the field a little bit, Chin might start to move further up the field. You'll find him inside the 14 playing full forward, and he's moving up and back and keeping the opposition guessing, because you have to man mark him. You can't just say, Asher, look, he'll be grand, he'll get lost in traffic. He won't, he's class. And he obviously looks like a mountain among men out there as well. So I think they're definitely a team for the future. Whether they're a team for this year, the fact that they struggled past Fern St. Aidan's 2-11-16, I wouldn't be 100% sure, but I can definitely see a huge amount of potential in that team.
Yeah, sounds like it. Like it's the kind of the county managers that are involved this year is kind of interesting. Like, you know, John Milo over St. Martin's, and you mentioned Derek McGrath. Like the moment he gets involved, like it does suddenly kind of, you know, pique your interest, doesn't it, as regards, you know, what he's going to kind of go and do with them and what sort of impact he's going to have. But like the point you're making about Shane again, like it's goes back to kind of repeat myself, but it's late July and you have access to your absolute county star and you can kind of build around it, as opposed to he's battered and he's tired after a long summer with Wexford, and you're trying to get him back at the end of September, start of October, and, you know, try and piece something together and try and figure out how you're going to get on. So are they going to be kind of one of those clubs around the country that have a better than expected season, and you can put it down to the fact that the county guy is there with them the whole time and is able to basically run the show and kind of show everyone kind of how he can be the main man and how everyone kind of feed off him around him at club level.
Yeah, that's a very fair point, that rather than trying to slot him back in at the end of the year and you've been playing challenge matches without the whole guy who's going to make the thing tick, yeah, you're getting a chance to build it around him. So we'll probably have a few strange county championship winners this year, because finally teams have had this chance. And you know, there's often a team like, why haven't they won a county title yet? They've so many county lads. This is the year because they can make it gel.
Yeah, it will be interesting, right, to look back and see is what names will kind of jump out. Even getting to semi-finals and finals, you know, teams over the last few years might really felt that they were getting a fair crack at the whip for, you know, whatever reason, like the American angle that we talked about earlier as well, like, you know. So yeah, I guess the thing we're saying, there's not as much excuses maybe people can point to this year.
Quick run through the Watford and Wicklow championships. So Lismore against 4 Mile Water, Abbeyside against Ballysaggart, Passage against Tallow, and Rowan Moore against Clonea. And in Wicklow then Glenealy against Bray Emmets and Carnew against St. Patrick's. So just to finish up there, you are heading to a couple of games yourself this weekend, yeah? Yeah,
so just going to a couple of the games in Cork, Middleton, Sarsfields, and potentially I suppose trying to get the accreditation for Glen Rovers as well, St. Finbarrs on Saturday night. So yeah, 5 nights again now is what I'm looking forward to, just to see what kind of Ben O'Connor's kind of done with Middleton. And like I said, they're probably 2 established sides, and just the fact that it seems like they have the next wave of kind of underage talent. And it was just funny to see what the group stage format's going to bring to Cork this year. Obviously, you've operated under it for a good few years in Dublin, but I think it's a lot better. Like, they've cut it down to 12 teams now with the top grade in Cork. It's just was a bit unwieldy before. You obviously had the division winners into that, so that most likely be McKilly. But I just think, yeah, it's going to make it interesting to see how it goes and what difference it makes.
Absolutely. So that's Club Talk Hurling, brought to you by Slattery Sullivan Insurances in Nina. Call up for a new business quote there, 067 56705, and it's 10% off all new business quotes with the reference "our game." Thanks very much, Fintan.
No worries.